Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. Gerry Cole is the author of the best-selling book, Blue Skies and Tailwinds. The story focuses on a family that is struggling to get their lives back on track after a fiery airplane crash almost claims the life of their son and brother. We're introduced to Mom, a stay-at-home parent who has to learn new skills to be a caregiver to her son, and Dad, a physician who traveled back and forth from Los Angeles to Gainesville to be with his wife and son. How they evolve and create a new life. They continue to thrive today. Gerry Cole grew up in Western New York, studied English and composition at the State University of New York, Buffalo, as a minor in Spanish. She's been married to her husband, Jeremy, for many years. They have 3 children, 5 grandsons. Blue Skies and Tailwinds, an inspiring story of love and courage, a true testimony of family, faith, friends, and fellowship born in adversity. And author Gerry Cole joins us on This Week in America. Hi, Gerry, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Hi, Rick. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with you.
Well, there's so much to talk about, and this book is doing so well. It's a remarkable story. We'll give you all the information where the book's available as we go through our conversation here today. What was the inspiration? Why did you decide to write this story?
Well, Rick, the initial inspiration came from, believe it or not, all the doctors and nurses at the hospital when I was in the burn ICU with Matt. After they were pretty sure that he would survive the accident, they would say to me, "You are going to have an amazing story to write." And then even the doctors got in it. And this one who always made me laugh said to me, "Girl, this is going to be an amazing book." So that's where it started. And of course, it escalated as time went on. And then Matt joined in and said, "Ma, are you going to write your book?" And I thought, I better get going. So that's where all of that started. That was a long time ago. It was almost 20 years ago.
That's amazing. And how many lives you've touched with the book Blue Skies and Tailwinds, people going through family problems, personal problems, adversity. Deriving information from the book Blue Skies and Tailwinds, Gerry Cole, the author, is our guest on the program. If you're Googling that, that's Gerry and then Cole, Cole. We'll give you all this information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Let's go back and take this back from the beginning. How did you manage to handle such a challenge with your family? Talk about what that was like in the beginning, getting the word of the tragedy, and then trying to pull everybody together.
I think that mostly everyone in my family at that point was going in a different direction. We were all on different pages. Matt was in Florida. We lived in Los Angeles. So our first job was getting to Gainesville, Florida, at the University of Florida, where the hospital is. And we actually thought that Gainesville is in I think it's Georgia. So we had to find out exactly where we were going, got our flights there, and it was horrific to see our son in that bed. He was in a coma, and he was on a ventilator, and the truth is we couldn't even recognize him in the bed. But I'm not quite sure how it happened. We just suddenly very slowly started coming together. I was there with Jeremy and my 2 daughters, and we were gathering around the bed, and I think we were probably all praying, because we had never seen anything like this. My husband talks about, he's a physician, and he talks about how he had never seen anything like that. He had never done a rotation through a burn unit. So this was a different situation for him also. And of course, he wasn't the doctor in control. He was the patient's father.
That had to be a strange set of circumstances for him, too. He's sort of a bystander in this in terms from the medical attention. I mentioned this was a fiery airplane crash. Tell us a little bit about the crash.
Well, I just know actually what bystanders and people told us, that it the plane was zigzagging, going back and forth, and was awfully low to the ground. And there was one young man who said that the wings were clipping trees as they came by. And Matt also adds today that they whizzed by some sort of brick wall, and he knew they were in trouble. The boss had controls of the plane. He was flying it at this point, And to his credit, he was able to land the plane. It was not a great landing. It was a bumpy landing, and when they landed, the plane burst into flames. And the flames were on the side where Matt was sitting, and they came up the wing of the plane, engulfing his body. And he says that he jumped out on fire and rolled around in the dirt. He said from kindergarten, drop, roll, and put the fire out. But that didn't happen. We learned later on that it's very tough to put out flames from airplane fuel. It just likes to keep burning, I guess. But there was some young man driving by, and he stopped and saw Matt on fire, and he came and took his jacket off and wrapped Matt up with it, which of course put the flames out. So that was the story of that. We have a picture of the plane that's totally destroyed, crunched into a million little pieces. And I look at that every now and then. I think, my gosh, how did those guys get out?
Yes. That has to bring back, again, all of these memories. Gerry Cole is our guest, the author of the best-selling book, Blue Skies and Tailwinds. You'll find the book at the publisher, stratton-press.com. Of course, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the usual places. And you can go to our website and link on directly and get information. Let's go back to when the family arrives at the hospital and you see Matt in just this tragic condition that he's in. What emotions are you going through? I mean, it'd be difficult at that point to keep going. And were there thoughts of giving up? Did you ever let that creep into your memory and into your mind?
Not at that point. Initially, my first reaction and feeling was fear. Seeing my child like this, not recognizable. He was so burned. His face was bright red, and they had like tongue depressors in his mouth, and I'm assuming that's to hold back his tongue because he was on a ventilator, and there were tubes going down his throat. So I was terribly frightened about what was happening to my child. That came first. Did I think about quitting? Actually, no. That never occurred to me. I figured I had a job to do and I better get to it. There was no quitting.
How was it when the doctors came in and they give you that initial diagnosis? What was that, and how did you respond to that? What were the chances? Did you think of survival at that point?
I believe they gave Matt about a 40% chance of survival. And again, that was very scary.
Yes.
I didn't think those were great odds, but I didn't know for sure. They didn't really give us a diagnosis because Matt was not sick. There was no diagnosis to give other than if he makes it. If he survives, I believe, was the diagnosis.
That's just an amazing story, and all parents can go through and think what they would do in a situation like that. Blue Skies and Tailwinds by Gerry Cole, the author, and our guest on the program. Information on where the book's available, of course, at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Going through all this process, and we'll talk about what you went through and the length of time everybody in the family went through this, but I ask about you thinking about giving up because you were the one that's there on a daily basis trying to pull everything together. What was Matt's mental attitude going through this? Did you sense he had any thoughts of giving up during this process?
I'm sure he did, but initially for the first 2.5 months, he was in a drug-induced coma. So as he jokingly says today, I was fast asleep, which of course he was. But then after they woke him up, I know he had thoughts about, how did this happen? What am I doing here? I don't want to go on. He never said those out loud because I think because he's too positive a fella. He's a very positive guy. And I think he recognized also when he was awake that we had a big job ahead of us.
How difficult was it? I'm going to talk about the emotions that you went through. It's not just you handling these emotions. You've got the family. You're trying to bring everybody together, get them on the same page, give them the pep talk that we're going to get through this as a family. You've got Matt and the obviously ups and downs, as you mentioned, with emotionally is what he was going through. How difficult was it to handle your emotions? Everybody, it sounds like, was sort of looking to you for to be the rock to get through this.
Well, I think, Rick, that people look to the mom to help them hold things together. And the truth is, I didn't know how. I had to learn as I went along. The nurses in the hospital were absolutely phenomenal. I can't praise those people enough because the truth is they took great care of Matt, but they also took great care of me, which I highly appreciate. Yes. And they would sit if they had the time and talk to me and pat me on the back and said, they all started calling me Mom Cole. I don't know where that came from, but they would say, Mom Cole, you're going to do this. You're going to get this done. And gosh, here we are 20 years down the road, and we got it done.
And all of that is detailed it's a very readable book. It's a book that once you start reading, you're not going to be able to put it down. It's Blue Skies and Tailwinds. Through all of this, your husband, the physician, is going back and forth basically from coast to coast. Talk about that and what he went through, again, being the father and being a doctor as well.
Well, he went back to California a week or so after Matt's accident because the truth is we learned this very quickly that even though a tragedy, something like this, an accident happened in our family, for the rest of the world, life went on. Jeremy's patients still counted on him. They still got sick. When's he going to be in the office, they were saying. So he had a huge responsibility. And of course, our daughters were back there, so he had a responsibility of the daughters also. Even though they were pretty grown up, it's not that they needed daily care or anything. One was working in the pharmaceutical business, and my little one was in her last year of high school. So not babies, but of course, it was still nice to have Dad around.
Talk a little bit about at the end of this, as Matt was starting to get better. What did the family go through at that point when you could almost see the end in sight, that he was going to recover from this? What was that like, and how long a process was that? How long are we talking about before you saw that?
Well, we saw that and were pretty sure Matt would recover after about, I'm going to say about 3.5 months in the burn unit. And then the doctor sent Matt off to rehab. That was also in Gainesville, where he had to learn how to walk again, and he had to learn how to eat again, feed himself, and do all the things that you and I take for granted. And that wasn't happening so quickly because he had lost the use of both arms. So he jokingly said, of course, today, after many years, time heals a lot of wounds. He will say to me, oh, my God, I ate like a toddler. And I said, you sure did. Thank goodness we had labs. And labs, they'll eat anything. So everything Matt dropped, they ate.
Gerry Cole is our guest on the program. If you're Googling, that's Gerry. The book is Blue Skies and Tailwinds, best-selling book available wherever books are sold. I'll send you to the publisher, stratton-press.com, for example. We've got all this on our website. What do you hope to achieve by writing this book? What's the goal from your standpoint?
Well, Rick, I would love to touch just one person, one mom out there, one spouse who's taking care of a child or her husband or wife. I want that person to know that there is life after this. They can do it. Don't give up. My favorite words are, quitting is not an option. And I'm hoping that if I touch one person to realize that they can do it, they can get through, they can recover, then my book will have been a success.
Well, you take us through all of the different steps, and I'm thinking as we're talking, there were days, this was incremental. There had to be days where nothing happened. There was no great progress, and you had to start wondering, is this going to go in the right direction? How do you get through those days when they're stagnant? There's really no step forward.
And actually, most of the days were like that.
Yes.
I thought that we were taking maybe one step forward because Matt was able to walk by himself to the gym at rehab. And then the next day, he couldn't get out of bed, and the physical therapist would say, you want to go to the gym today? And Matt would be quiet. Nah, he would say, I don't want to go. I don't feel like it. And I'm thinking, oh my God, we're never going to get out of here. Because also a big part of my emotional roller coaster is that I was so far away from home.
Yes.
And selfishly speaking, I wanted to go home to Los Angeles. I wanted to scoop up my kid and get out of Florida. No offense to Florida, but, I wanted to get home to California where my home was, my husband, my children, my dogs, my friends.
Florida wasn't your home, and I ask about the emotions of family members, and you make a very good point. How did you deal with all of this? Because I don't want to say you're necessarily isolated there, but your family members, for the most part, are not there. You've got a medical staff that's very supportive, but how did you get through all of this? And I'm sure a lot of time just sitting and thinking.
That's right. Well, after numerous cups of tea and just sitting there and daydreaming, I made some friends, but those friends left the hospital. And the friends that I made, unfortunately, their loved one did not leave the hospital. Those members of the family went home alone. There was a lot of hugging with these people. They are very dear to me. I don't know, we didn't keep in touch, of course, but I think of them often. And I believe that there were a couple of women in particular who had a great impact on how I behaved, how I felt.
Well, and there's really no book, although now I think there is one if you're in that situation, but Google even to try to find how you get through the situation, and it's sort of probably up to each individual and how they handle that. And you see in this book, Blue Skies and Tailwinds, how Gerry handled this and pulled the family together. Time is going by so quickly. Let's talk about Matt now. He went through this whole arduous comeback. Talk about his condition now and how he's doing.
Oh my gosh, we are so proud of him. When we lived here in Oklahoma, we decided to move here right after we got back to Los Angeles. Jeremy had a new opportunity, a medical opportunity. So we thought, let's try it. What the heck? And it's been wonderful for us. And Matt decided maybe 6 years, 5 years or so, I don't recall, after his accident, that he was going to have his right arm amputated. And as devastating as that sounds, you know what? It was the most amazing opportunity for him because after all this time, he was in control. Because in the hospital, he was in control of nothing. The doctors, the nurses, they came in, they poked him, they prodded, they touched, they rolled him around from side to side and stood him up on his feet so he could walk. He was in control of nothing. He did what they told him to do. And after much discussion with his dad and me, he decided to go ahead and have the amputation. And then maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks after that, he was fitted for a prosthesis. And then I'm going to say maybe 2 years after that, he got his degree in aviation, and is called aviation/professional pilot. And he got the degree. And then he said to me one day, he came up to me, I was in the kitchen, and he said, Ma, I have something to do. Will you come with me? I said, sure. Where are we going? He goes, I have to get my pilot's license back. And of course, my heart stopped beating.
I can imagine, yes.
But I said, okay, as a mom, I believe my job is to support him. So I said, okay. So he found out, and we went to an airport here in Oklahoma City because all of his licenses had lapsed. It had been a long time. So he had to go through all this stuff again, taking some lessons, getting proficient in the plane, getting his instrument license back. And the morning that he was taking the proficiency test, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what it's called, but it was with an FAA examiner. It was a cold, windy morning here in Oklahoma City. And as I say, what else is new, right?
No, exactly.
I saw that little plane take off, and I knew my son was flying it, and I burst into tears just because. Why not? I had, cried a lot of tears, and to see him flying that plane, I don't know if I was crying because I was nervous, I was sad, I was happy, I was grumpy. I don't know.
Probably all of those.
Probably.
That's just such an amazing story, and to see that and see what Matt went through and how he persevered and came out just with a remarkable life ahead of him. A couple minutes left in the program. What advice would you give mothers, or basically anybody, family member, friend, that's going through suffering right now, or going through suffering with somebody right now? What advice would you give them? Because you've been there. You've had the good, the bad, and the ugly through this whole experience. What advice would you give them?
Well, I think I would start with my old mantra: quitting is not an option.
Yes.
On your worst days, it will be a good day. Don't give up hope. Never, ever give up hope. Listen to your loved one, what he's going through, what he's talking about. Listen to him when he says, this hurts. Be supportive, be kind, and be fair. I think that's about the best advice I can give to a mom. I know how tough it is. Oh my gosh, I know how tough, but don't give up. Squeak out a little bit more, because you would be surprised how much there is to give.
You learned so much about Matt during this process, and your husband and the family members, the daughters. What did you learn about yourself in going through this? Did you, looking back on it now, did you ever imagine you would have the strength to go through what you did?
Oh gosh, no. No, never. I learned about myself that I'm very tenacious. I didn't know that. I also learned that I have a tremendous amount of patience. Now, having 3 kids, maybe I should have known that about myself.
Yes.
But I was so busy, I didn't notice it. So that was nice to know that I'm tenacious and that I'm patient, and that when I look in the mirror in the morning and I'm drying my hair today, I say, I really like myself. I'm a nice lady.
Well, you are a nice lady and a rock in getting everybody through the experience, and a very talented writer as well. Are you working on another book?
I am, actually. I am writing on another book. I don't know when it'll be out. I don't know when I'll finish. I just write what's in my brain for the day. So, but I'm enjoying it. It's fun, and I would never thought at my age I would have a new career.
Published author, Gerry Cole, published best-selling author, and hopefully we'll stay in touch and be able to talk once the new book is out. This book is doing remarkably well. It's inspirational to so many people. Blue Skies and Tailwinds, an inspiring story of love and courage through testimony of family faith, Friends and Fellowship, Born in Adversity. You'll find the book. It's published by Stratton Press, their website, stratton-press.com. Book available at Amazon, all of the usual places. If you're Googling, Gerry is Gerry. And we got all this information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Gerry, a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you for being with us. Continued success, our best to Matt, and hopefully the new book's out. We'll have a chance to talk about that as well.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure to speak with you.
It has been our pleasure. What a remarkable, inspirational story. Blue Skies and Tailwinds. Gerry Cole, the author. All the information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.